And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the interview room.
Welcome to our Sunday Night Live, everybody. Thank you for being here with us. And today is Father's Day, so happy Father's Day, Chris.
Thanks, Bear.
You are an amazing dad. I don't tell you that enough. I'm grateful for you.
Actually, you tell me all the time, and I love that. It's one of the many things I love about you.
You're so sweet. So thank you.
Wow.
And happy Father's Day to all the dads out there and grandfathers. We hope you're enjoying good family time and time with loved ones and people close to you. And we are grateful that you are all here. We cannot do this program without a lot of help. And we wanted to thank our subscribers, our Patreon members, our YouTube members, and of course our mods, Miss Sophia, Maui Girl. Our prayers out for Mimi J2 this evening, Teresa M, and Laura Walty.
She's been having some issues with her husband.
She has. So
health-wise.
Prayers for Mimi tonight.
And also Teresa, her husband is a cancer survivor. So we need to keep these wonderful women in our prayers, and also those who might be struggling, who are less fortunate than ourselves. The greatest exercise we will ever do is lift somebody else up. And did you have a marvelous day today, hon?
I did. How was your day?
I had a great day.
I hope so on Father's Day.
We got to talk to the kids, and that's all that counts.
Yeah.
Everything else is gravy from there. Wow. So we're so grateful to each and every one of you out there. Like Karen said, we're here for one reason and one reason only, and that is to help support Nancy Guthrie in her case that the authorities are investigating. And, you know, tonight, Karen and I are going to present some information and our observations that we found while being on the ground in the Tucson area under the radar for over a week. You know how I roll. And those of you who know me and have worked with me in the past, I get things done sometimes, not as a lone wolf, but sometimes as a lone wolf. we move things. So tonight we're going to try to answer 3 questions. And these 3 questions about Nancy. And we hope that as we go through not only video showing you, a variety of different things and our observations of what's taken place, we want you to understand that these 3 questions about Nancy and about her disappearance, it's going to take some time this evening to explain this very methodically. And why do I say that? Because we have literally many, many hours of video, many interviews. We were on the ground, like I said, for over a week.
And let me just say the people of Tucson could not have been any more kind and welcoming and just super sweet to everybody we met. It was a really great experience.
Yes, it certainly was. And as we go through this evening, I'm going to ask your patience as we go through not only this PowerPoint, but also the observations that we're going to bring up and some of the connections we're going to make. And so we only ask just one thing. If you have not subscribed to our channel, we would ask you tonight, if this is your first time here and you're kind of sitting off into the background, waiting to hear what's going on, it would help us if you could hit that subscribe button. Doesn't mean you have to be here forever. We would just ask, though, that you would subscribe and then that you would pass this information around, quite frankly, to everybody on your social media networks. Okay, that said, over the last week or so, behind the scenes, we've met with many not only people, just regular folks, but we met with many law enforcement sources. Having been in this business since 1982, having trained many law enforcement officers around the country, I happen to have a Rolodex that sometimes focuses things very clearly. And tonight, we're going to bring some information to you that nobody knows about, and things that I have dug up with the help of my sweetheart over here. And we're going to present this in a couple of different ways. Tonight will be episode number 1, where you're going to get a lot of the information. And then I want to have our panel weigh in of experts with Dr. Picotto, John, Bob, others, and get their take on it, to get their reaction to the information that we're going to give you tonight. And so it's going to be in a couple of different pieces. And then we've got another one right behind that about some of the interactions we had with the sheriff's department.
Yes. Interesting. Very interesting stuff.
Yes. And that's Karen's lane, because she, being an investigative journalist, she obviously has dug up stuff that, what can we say? You'll hear about it and you'll see it. You'll actually see it. So that's where we're going to be heading here. So we're going to answer 3 questions tonight, or at least try to answer 3 questions for not only you, but for all of us about the Nancy Guthrie investigation, and not only its status, but have we been looking in the wrong place is one of the things. So the first question is, why Nancy? And then the second question we're going to take on is, does the Porch Guy in any way, shape, or form connect to this family, i.e., the home, the environment, the situation, the circumstance, and if so, or if not, can we take them off of the plate? One of the most interesting conversations we had was with some of our sources is that law enforcement was shocked when Nanos has gone into the public and said certain things. And I'm talking the investigation team. I'm not talking about the administrators, but the team. And it was clearly brought to us that this investigation needed some shifting, and that my weighing in here, because of my experience and training, maybe it will help the circumstance. So that's going to be the third piece of the puzzle here this evening. We're going to talk about, contact sites. And what I mean by that is the first question we're going to answer is, why Nancy? Hey, when we got up there, obviously, everybody in the world, including everybody in chat here tonight, as well as us, we've been asking ourselves, okay, why Nancy? Why is this 84-year-old woman sound asleep at night, 2:30 in the morning? Why is her pacemaker? Why all of the things that we already know? Okay? I'm not going to hash all the things we already know this evening. We're going to go into a different lane here, because I think at this point, there's a lot of guessing. There's a lot of things that, could have, should have, would have. Okay, that's out there right now. And that's not how Karen and I approached this over the last week. We wanted to start with this question: why Nancy? Okay. And when we got up there, obviously the sheriff had, his people, pulling streamers off, shutting the street down, the memorial's gone.
Making arrests.
The memorial's gone, which, by the way, personally, I'm not convinced that he didn't step over the First Amendment there and that could be dealt with, at another time. But it was almost like, okay, well, wait a minute, what is going on here? We are at, 4.5 months into this thing, 139 days, and she is gone. She's still gone. Okay. So that was one of the first things we wanted to tackle. And when I say that, it's this idea that presents itself that said, what are the odds that an 84-year-old woman is sound asleep in her bedroom, and in this house, this is, standing outside the house, which my better half here, the brains of the operation, is an amazing photographer, took these pictures. And
it should just also be noted, from the street, we stayed on the public street. Obviously, there's signs, you can see them, no trespassing. We didn't go on the property because we respected the signs, the law, etc. And so we shot everything from the public right away, the public street.
Yeah. And so, of course, I'm not going to jail for anybody. So, of course, we're going to always obey the laws just like everybody else. That's it. Okay. Karen, what was your first thought when we were pulling up to about this particular question? Why Nancy?
I mean, it's still a confounding question to everybody. When we got there, of course, just the landscape is very stark, but just to even get to Nancy's house, as many of you already know, it's like over 1.5 miles off the main street. You have to know where you're going in this neighborhood to find her house. There's so many different streets and it winds, and
you may have to get a little closer to the mic, hon.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
Anyway, those were my first thoughts.
Okay. So the second question within that question is, why this family? Why does this guy in the upper right-hand corner,
Porch Guy,
why does he pick this family? And, we have debated this, in so many different ways in terms of the personality of the Porch Guy, in terms of, his behavior from a behavioral analysis side. But overall, what's going on with his selection process about this family? And I had an aha moment recently while standing in front of the house and being in front of the house. It occurred to me that there are 3 women in this scenario: Annie, Nancy, and Savannah. Cameron is kind of out of the picture because obviously, he's not female. Okay. But what type of individual would choose a home with an 84-year-old woman in it? And then I asked myself, well, how did he, and I'm of the opinion there's more than one, how did he or they know that this 84-year-old woman was going to be home that night, that day, in this house? And so that was one of the first things I wanted to answer for my own feelings. And I wanted to apply my skill set and learning and training and all the things that I've taught over the years in homicide investigation. Is while I'm standing there, remember, I tell you guys always about the time I met, LAPD. His name was Jigsaw John. And the first question he ever asked me was, are you teachable? And I met him at a CHIA conference, which is California Homicide Investigators Association. And I said, yeah, ultimately I said, yes. My pride got in the way at first. And he told me, you hesitated. And then he taught me some things. And I've applied those principles in not only in the Cold Case Foundation, working there, but also here on YouTube, as well as in this presentation tonight. And as I stood there, I had to ask myself, I tried to put myself in the shoes, not of Nancy Guthrie, but of the perpetrator. Because the principle has always been, if you are going to understand why the hunter hunts, you first not only have to understand the deer, but you have to recognize and understand the lion. And I've spent almost 4 decades studying the lion. And this lion, I started from outside of the street, not on the porch with him the last week. And so one of the first questions I wanted to know, as probably you, is how did he know? Or they, how did they know if there's more than one? Which, again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm of the opinion there are more than one. Okay? But how did they know at 2 o'clock in the morning, Nancy Guthrie was going to be in that house? And then I had to ask myself, okay, well, why not this house? This is where Annie lives. She's a woman. She's part of the family. Why not select her as taking, breaking into this house at 2:30 in the morning? Why select her mother's house? Why select Savannah's house? And remember, I'm talking about the house now. I'm not talking about the people in the house. I'm talking about the neighborhood. And we're talking about the selection that the suspect had to go through. He had to come to a process internally to say, okay, this is the one I'm going to go after. Okay. So far, thoughts, feelings?
Keep going.
Okay. Karen knows how I am. Okay.
And he knows how I am. Like, let's keep going.
Okay. So the second point here, right, is as I stood there, and by the way, I stood in front of this house as well. Why not this house? And the more I thought about it, the more I had to question, the vulnerability between the two homes here. They separate themselves by approximately 2.6 miles, and these are approximates, these are guesstimates, as a crow flies. But why did the suspect select the house on the right and not the house on the left when they are connected to the same family? That's been a mystery to me. And so I started thinking about, okay, we need to go down this lane from an investigative analysis aspect, and we need to come up with at least something that makes sense, or something that maybe doesn't make sense, and maybe it's right in front of us all along. And could it be a connection? Could there be something that's connected to both of these houses inadvertently from what the hunter and the lion is seeing? Okay? Because once we understand what the lion sees, then we understand how to look through his eyes. And you no longer become the hunter, you become the hunted. And homicide is the only job on the earth where you hunt people. And you hunt them to get them off the street and to put them where they belong. And so as I spent the last week up there, I sincerely wanted to get the feeling of not only the neighborhood, I wanted to get the dynamics of the family, of the law enforcement, of the media. How does the media, the local media, playing with the sheriff? And if so, why is that happening? And all this other stuff. And by the way, we've got some things that are going to blow your mind about no nets. Another show. Okay. That said, looking as a crow flies, there had to be some connection why the house on the right was selected and the house on the left was not. So we started to do some research. And as we researched, we ended up first approximately 2 minutes away from Annie's house. And I wanted to understand a couple of things. And I asked Karen, I said, what do we know about this Bitcoin thing and anything like that, that notes, et cetera? And we ended up over at the Circle K.
Yeah. Do you guys remember, excuse me, early on in the investigation, early days of the investigation, we heard a media report that said that investigators went to a Circle K. And it was reported that law enforcement visited this particular Circle K after receiving a tip regarding a vehicle of interest. And so what happened was law enforcement went there, and Circle K employees reported to the media, not law enforcement confirming it, but just Circle K employees said that they gave law enforcement access to the store's surveillance video. So we always thought that was kind of interesting. Chris, I think you just kind of noted that and kind of kept it in the back of your mind.
Yep.
From the beginning.
Yes, correct. And so, the question was, okay, is there an ATM machine in there? And the answer is yes. But then the second question is, does it accept Bitcoin or can you pull Bitcoin? Now, my research has shown, and our research has shown, it's 50-50. This particular machine is the one in the Circle K, approximately 0.5 miles away from AG's house. Okay. But what's more important than this Bitcoin machine, or somewhat of a Bitcoin machine, we're not sure if you can pull Bitcoin out of this machine or if you can put stuff into it. We're not sure if you can just see a Bitcoin wallet. There's Allpoint allows you to do all three of those particular processes. So that said, we thought, okay, why are law enforcement going over there that night or, during the course of the investigation? What's the biggest piece of information they're looking for? And of course, we know they were looking for a suspicious car. But with that suspicious car, one of the things Karen noticed right away when you get there was this. Point it out for everybody, Karen.
It might be hard for you guys to see on your screen, but looking inside the store, you see a large monitor mounted up off the ceiling. And for anybody who walks into the store, the camera zooms in on whoever that is and then puts that image up on that monitor. And you can see all this from actually standing outside the store. You don't have to go in. And obviously, it's going to give the clerk or clerks a clear visual of the person coming in.
Okay. And so that said, the next thing I thought about was, okay, well, let's go on a drive. Let's show the public what it's like from this machine or this store. And this is 0.5 away from house number 2. And we thought, okay, why is this so close to house number 2? Is it even in play? Or is the suspect surveilling house number 2 and house number 1? Is he doing both? I don't know yet. But let me show you what it looks like at night. And we're going to go into the neighborhood. Now, as you pull out of here, the first thing you're going to notice, which everybody talks about, is how dark it is. And that is a true statement. But it's a 2-minute drive.
Can you make that bigger? Make that larger so people can kind of watch it better?
Yep. There you go. One of the thing that struck me was, look, this camera is only catching the light. And look how dark it is when you cannot see into the distance. Picture yourself as the suspect driving this route. I want everybody to put themselves in the driver's seat, and you are the perpetrator. Because this is what the perpetrator is seeing if this individual is traveling at night. He has to have lights on. They have to follow, these roads that are dipping, that are turning. Okay. And now we're coming up to house number 2 on the left as you come through this. So you can see it is a very short distance from house number 2, AG's house, to the Circle K. We're going to come right up the hill here. And now you are, and we are there.
Of course, it's dark and you can't see.
It's pitch black and you cannot see. So now, the question is, again, why not this house? What is it about this house that the suspect chose not to engage in? But later, some guy in Hawthorne arbitrarily chose to engage the residents, the family of this house. And that's for another conversation that we'll get to. So let's go past this house, and you can see the top half of the screen here is literally how dark it is. And so this is what the suspect saw through their front windshield. Again, we have to ask ourselves the question, why Nancy? Why not Annie? Why not Savannah? What is the connection in any way, shape, or form to these 3 women that Nancy was selected? And so I think it's important then the next piece of this puzzle as we go through this is to understand what the dynamics were in terms of relationships. And one of the things that Karen and I wanted to dive into and learn about were these relationships. And I wanted to know, in my mind, they're both very pretty women. But why not the one on the left versus the one on the right? What was it about each one of these women that they were not chosen by the suspect? What is it in the personality of the suspect that he or whoever chose not to pick Annie. She's right there. She's 2.9 miles away from her mom. So why not select her? What's going on with this individual in here? Now, if we think about this even deeper, and I know it's going to be hard for some of the trolls to follow the bouncing ball here because you have no critical thinking skill. So I'm going to help you. As we go through this and we start looking at the dynamics of the family, I want you to catch a couple of things, first of all, in this particular photo. This is in the kitchen of Nancy's house. Look at the lock mechanisms on the windows. These windows pull in. They don't push out. The door on the right pulls in. It does not push out. So if you're going to go out into the backyard, then you're going to have to pull that door in. And if you're going to open those windows, you're going to have to open those windows by pulling them in. Those are the old-fashioned lock mechanisms. Okay. Did the suspect know that? To prop the doors open? We'll find out. So if we look at the bond here between the two sisters, it's pretty strong. So strong that I would submit to you, if we say that Cameron told Savannah, it's because of you, I would submit to you that the suspect probably studied Annie as well. If not, how did he know that she wasn't spending the night with her mother that evening after the party? How would the suspect know that? Taking a huge chance going up to the porch. It's really interesting that the suspect would know that Savannah's famous. Of course, that's a no-brainer. But what about Annie? She could have been targeted as well. Why would he ignore her? And so, as we go through the presentation tonight, I want you to keep an open mind as to how a contact site is so valuable in these types of investigations, and why the neighborhood is so critical into these investigations, and why it takes time. Because we have to ask ourselves again, why not this house? Why not this one? Why is it Nancy's house? So let's take a drive over to Nancy's house. If you were the suspect and you were surveilling Nancy's house, would it be logical to surveil Annie's house? And maybe that's why they're looking for a car at the Circle K up at the corner of this street. We just left house number 2, and here's that Circle K. And we're going to drive over now to Nancy's house. So what was it about Nancy's house that the perpetrator felt, and we're going to put the victimology aside. We're just going to talk about the neighborhood for a moment, okay? What was it in the suspect's mind that, let's say he or she would have taken this route? It's 2.9 miles to go from Annie's house to her mother's house, 0.5 miles to go from the Circle K or from Annie's house to the Circle K. And so what was it in the suspect that said, you know what? I know exactly where Nancy Guthrie lives. And if so, I started asking myself, okay, well, what kind of cars are in play here? And how does the individual know each and every one of these turns? So let's talk about this neighborhood for a moment, Karen, as we drive over there. Tell me about the neighborhood.
Well, it's an older neighborhood. The homes were built, it seems like mostly maybe back in the early 70s. And when we get in there, you guys, you'll be able to see it. Of course, you've seen it on the news a million times. You know, the whole topography, the landscape, of course, this is the desert. This is Sonoran Desert. You've got saguaro cactus. You've got the dry brush. You've got a harsh climate. You've got, you know, scorching temperatures. You've got, but in the neighborhood in particular, you've got a lot of trees, obviously, along the road that kind of block or provide, I guess, some privacy into the houses. And but I tell you, at night, with as dark as it is, you can't see anything.
So let's think about you now. You're the suspect. You're driving potentially this route. And I'm going to submit to you being there now, standing in front of the house, studying the geographic area, studying the topography, and understanding the thought process of the suspect. You got to know where you're going. And I told Karen in the middle of the night where it's pitch black, I asked Karen a question. Remember what that question was? What did he have?
I don't remember the question.
Okay.
I love when Chris does that. Pop question. I'm not sure, honey.
He had an
Okay.
address.
He would have to.
That's all he
have
had.
to have known where he was going.
He would have had, all he would have had was an address.
Well, and based on the video that we've seen,
well,
earlier, 3 weeks earlier, he was there.
Right. But think about this, okay? Everybody think about this. We're going to turn into this neighborhood right now. And I'm going to ask you a question. Okay? We're going to ask the world a question. Why not, as we go in, why not this house on the right? Surely they must have Bitcoin. Why not this house? Why not that house? Why not any of these houses? If you look at this neighborhood, it's been described as a bowl of spaghetti just dropped onto the road or onto the ground. And then they put roads on it where that spaghetti landed. But why is the suspect going to Nancy's house? Why not this house right here? Why is he passing this house? Why is he, going past this next one? How does he know where he's going in the middle of the night? And why does he know that? There has to be a contact point. Why not this house right there? That looks like a nice house, looks almost like Nancy's house. Why did he pass it and not go into it? Why is he continuing to move deeper into this environment? One that I would submit to you, you've got to know where you're going and why you're going there. Why not that house? And so to me, there's a comfortable feeling. Not only do we see it on the porch, but we see it coming into the neighborhood. This is a situation and a guy or whoever it's going to be that's been here many times before. And I said this in the Brian Koberger case, and we were right, and I'm going to say it in this case. This suspect is local. He or she knows this environment. This is not a random, let's just kind of find a victim. Because look at this turn right here as we go towards Nancy's house. You are in a very elaborate street spaghetti bowl environment. This is a situation where this individual not only knows where they're going, but how does this individual know it's Nancy's house? All you have is a mailbox like this one and an address on that mailbox. Even cops, I would submit to you, would get lost in an emergency situation if they didn't know exactly where to go or have an address to type into a GPS through their computer-aided dispatch. There is no way this guy randomly pulls up into this neighborhood and says, oh, this is where the 84-year-old woman lives. I'm going to go and do what I got to do now. There is no way that happened. There's even speed bumps that this individual has to be aware of. Flying out of this neighborhood at night with an 84-year-old woman in the home, if this was the escape route, there's only two ways in. One, and I just came in from the opposite way. But they're the same, essentially. They're about almost, how many miles in? Just under 2?
Yeah, 1.7.
1.7 miles in to get to Nancy's house. There is no way this suspect did not know where this person was going. Because as you're coming in here, again, you can see this is not an easy place to find. It is a maze. And as you get up close to her house, and you're the suspect now, you're driving your car, and you're going to go kidnap, park your car wherever you're going to park it. That's another show. But you're driving the car with the intent to go kidnap an 84-year-old woman. You're dressed up. You got your Walmart clothing on. You got your Walmart backpack. You got your toy gun. You got your mask. Everything's in front of you. And you know for sure this is the house on the right with the yellow ribbon. And by the way, that ribbon wasn't there. So all you have is that mailbox with an address on it. Now, what's interesting about this, before I got there, I thought this was like a sprawling type of environment, property environment, okay? I was shocked that it's compacted and compressed. The driveways are not what I was thinking or seeing. The front is way different than I had envisioned. And I've been in these harsh environments many times. Many times. But it surprised me how this house is so close to the road.
Yeah, I think you said that, the aerial views, the drone footage, other images that have been out there for 5 months, and literally until you get there and see it yourself, it's just, I don't want to say it's distorted, but it can come off a longer driveway, a bigger piece of property than when you're there and you can walk it yourself. Would
Yeah.
you say that's
Yeah,
pretty much how you felt?
No, exactly. Yeah. And so again, then we have to process what the suspect is thinking. All right? And when you see it, you go, wait a minute. There's no way this is random. That this guy just drives into this neighborhood a mile and a half or 1.7 miles into this neighborhood and decides, oh, that's the house with the 84-year-old woman. I might as well go kidnap her for Bitcoin ransom. No. There is not only a whole bunch of pre-planning, what we call pre-incident behavior, and that's the next piece of this where I'm going tonight, that we need to study and think about the suspect in a pre-incident behavior concept. And I'll break that down for you here in a minute. Okay. So as you pass the house, mind you, it's pitch black because that's when the suspect is there. So if we ask ourselves, okay, if this guy's got pre-incident behavior, i.e. he's surveilling this house, how many times did he come back? And if so, what are the risk levels that this individual is taking to drive through this neighborhood on many occasions where even now, the neighbors are so vigilant, they're calling the cops on streamers and all this other stuff going on. Okay. But is the suspect blending in because it's a familiarity is my question. And if so, then how does that relate to why this house is selected and not Annie's house? Because these are the two women that are connected to this family in this environment. They're 2.9 miles away from each other. So why was she passed and her mom was selected on a Saturday night? And I want to try to connect those dots tonight. And I have found some information that, quite frankly, I hope the investigators are going to chase it down. Because I wanted to know, one, in my mind, is this random? And the answer to me, I've clearly have come away with no way, shape, or form. The suspect knew where he was going. Okay? No question in my mind. He knew this house. He knew this environment. And he knew probably a lot more about the folks connected to it. And so for me, there were only 3 women connected to this home. The first, Nancy Guthrie and her husband. And then they had 2 daughters, Savannah Guthrie and Annie Guthrie. I would submit to you the suspect knew all about all 3 of them. Because if we take Savannah and put her in New York, where she lives, And then we say to ourselves, well, it must have been the Today Show presentation with her mom and her sister that drew the attention to the suspect. No. No way. Because just to study this neighborhood, study the entry, exit points, and lower your risk as a sophisticated kidnapper, you have got to know how you're going to pull this off. And you have got to think through this methodically. This is not a random situation where you spend 2 months and you decide to, friendly kidnap an 84-year-old woman out of her bed and then ask for Bitcoin ransom in a note. Okay. And if we take that piece of the puzzle and say, okay, well, wait a minute, this is weird. It starts, you start leaning towards the planning process even deeper and further into why Nancy Guthrie was selected. And as you can see, I was only there for a couple of minutes, and this van has come by here. I also saw some other things up there that I told Karen, there's some other things going on. I'm not going to mention it. But now, as we leave this area, I thought to myself, okay, I got to study this house. And the more I looked at it, and I looked at how compact it is, look how, when you see this from the air, it looks like it's a huge, long driveway. Okay.
Even now, looking at this photo, it is a bit distorted just for the way it is. It looks like it's actually longer. The driveway is a lot longer than what it actually is. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah, it's very short, actually. It's not long at all. And the driveway in front of the house, that's probably 20 feet into the property, and then you make the right-hand turn, and that's probably 45 feet up to the garage. Okay. Into the house. And by the way, we couldn't see the mat. I think it's still there.
We knew you guys were the first question. I kept telling Chris, I'm like, they're going to ask about the mat. Can we see the mat? I tell you what, we couldn't. It's just too dark. We were too far away. So we could not tell what was going on the front porch.
Yeah. And all the streamers and all the folks that have been hanging out in front of this have given us an amazing amount of information and video footage, and, we applaud you. But until you're actually there and you see it and you feel it, that front door is not probably 70 feet, maybe 80 feet from the street. Maybe a little bit further, but not much. And so the suspect took all of this into account, because if we notice, when he is first approaching the porch, he's coming from the right of this picture. So that means there has to be some type of motive mechanism, off to the right. And I started thinking to myself, what if this guy has multiple vehicles? What if this guy has access to multiple cars? And I'm not talking about the car dealer with Luke and the Range Rover. That's a no-brainer. But what if the suspect in pre-surveillance had multiple vehicles? Where would he get or she get access to multiple cars?
So if I'm understanding you, you're saying, what if he had different cars where he could do surveillance during the day and drive by in a different kind of car, knowing he was going to be picked up potentially on a Ring camera?
Exactly.
And so it would just make it look like these are different cars. It's the same guy doing that.
Right. Because what are the authorities looking for? right? They want video footage, right, hon?
Yeah, of cars.
They want video footage
In the neighborhood.
going way back. Okay. So, but what if they see multiple cars, and what if it's the same guy driving them? So I cataloged that up there, and I thought, okay, this guy's got to be coming in and out of this neighborhood on many occasions to get a good look, get a good feel. It wouldn't surprise me the individual walked up and around this house before 2:00 in the morning in the night the individual hit it. I asked myself, how does he get in? And in terms of, around the side, around the back, over the patio, in the front door, is it the back door? The sheriff hasn't told us that. Okay. So I started looking a little bit deeper. And I wanted to answer some of these questions in my own mind. And as I started to go down that lane, I wanted to see what would have been a contact site for the family members who live in this area. What would have been a contact site for Annie? Is she on the plate as a potential target for the suspect? Because we know Savannah is. Everybody, the world has gone and said, yes, Savannah is out there. She's worth whatever. Okay. But in this situation, we have to really ask ourselves, well, wait a minute. Let's put Savannah over here for a moment, and let's now concentrate for just a second and think about, okay, where would be a contact site for Annie? And I discovered something. I discovered a park. Those of you who live in Tucson, remember throughout this investigation, as I started talking to our sources and I started digging, I started thinking about where in the world would the suspect be hanging out if Dr. Bricato's theory of the waiter and the chef, where is the waiter? Well, I wanted to find out where all the waiters hang out. And then I wanted to find out if there's any correlation in any way, shape, or form back to Nancy Guthrie. And guess what I found out? First time you're ever hearing this. I found out in this park is a very interesting environment. Shootings, stabbings, homelessness, drugs, all the above. And so the more I dug, and by the way, this is an old piece of video, but listen for yourself.
So for all of you that have never seen an encampment, this is the encampment at Estevan Park that is right behind a gym that is run as a nonprofit for kids. And because this area has gotten so bad, the kids have stopped coming to the nonprofit. The nonprofit leases the building from the city. They've had to struggle to make their payments because of the situation here with the crime, the fentanyl, and the issues that go along with that. So it completely undermines what the nonprofit is trying to do for their kids.
Okay, so of course this is happening everywhere, but I thought to myself, okay, what is going on in this particular park? And of course, I came across that piece of the puzzle. Okay, and whoops, this particular park in of itself is just crazy,
Crime ridden.
Okay. And I thought, okay, well, this would be the type of park or type of environment, type of area that we can say, okay, if I needed a criminal or if I was a criminal of that mindset and I want it, I'm struggling, etc., would I pick up information about, certain things? Okay. This is the park. And then I had an aha moment. This is approximately 5.3 miles from AG's house. It is approximately 5.9 miles to Nancy's house. But more importantly, it is 1,000 feet from 901 North 13th Street. Why is that important? Karen?
You're going to have to keep going.
I'll tell you
in order
why.
for people to put this all together in their minds.
This is where Annie's studio is.
It's the location of the nonprofit that Annie has worked for and with for a number of years. And it's on her bio and it's all over her website.
So when we think about this, I started asking, wait a minute, what's going on here? Did the suspect overhear a conversation about Annie and her mother and her sister? Are they hanging out in this area? Is something going on here that nobody has looked into or investigated yet in terms of law enforcement? And so I started digging around even further and started asking the street. And the next thing I discover is this is where AG, her shop is. And look at the bottom pin on the right. That is her shop, and the park is within 1,000 feet. But here's what's really, really interesting. Between that shop and that park, guess what? Is an auto dealer. Check this out.
Accidents are a tragedy and they shouldn't have to exist, but they are the better alternative than continuously pushing people around.
Dozens of people are out on city streets after being removed from their encampment in Midtown. It's the latest development as Tucson leaders work to clean up homeless camps, and that effort is coming with pushback. The city says 80 people were living near Estevan Park near Speedway and I-10. The city says they worked to give them options before clearing out the area, but now there's concerns of another camp growing just down the street. 13 News reporter Shelby Slaughter is at the new encampment that just popped up.
Here off of 13th Avenue, you can't miss the dozens of tents lining the street. Residents tell me that this encampment popped up right after Estevan Park was cleared out last week.
And on Thursday morning, the 27th at 5 a.m., the city came in and swept the encampment. So pushed everybody out and bulldozed the wash.
Natalie Wynn, owner of the Splinter Art and Community Fund, says the city forced the people out of the park, leaving them with nowhere to go. So they ended up here on her doorstep. She says forcing people to move doesn't solve the problem, but rather just pushes it on someone else.
Now, here's an interesting piece of this puzzle. I'm not saying that the homeless, are the issue. I'm saying that if you potentially are the mindset to be Porch Guy, that's where you're going to find him, in that type of environment. So, as my sweetheart knows, I like to go to places at night and during the day, and when the sun's going down. And so I am going to show you that I went out there and I started looking at some of the elements there. And what do I mean by that? I had a case years ago. Her name was Rebecca Johnson. And in that particular case, it was a mother with 3 children. She disappeared. And she was murdered by 3 individuals, meth users, tweakers, all the above. They looked exactly like that environment we just saw in that news report. I spent over 3 months in that environment, talking. And I thought to myself, okay, has the sheriff, has Tucson PD, has anybody been flushing this neighborhood? If I was a streamer in Tucson, rather than hang out at Nancy's house, take the pictures of Porch Guy. And I know Monks just did a thing where you can screenshot his drawing and start poking the bear in that area. And so I talked to some of my folks and learned that Tucson has what they call Bravo teams. What did Nanos do to the Pima County Bravo teams?
Well, we heard that he dismantled them, just like we also heard that he dismantled his very experienced homicide unit and reassigned those folks to different places. We've heard that he's done a lot of dismantling of very valuable Sheriff's Department assets as far as investigations go.
Yeah. So basically he has, eliminated all the teams that would have been going out and talking to these types of individuals. And I went out and started talking to some individuals, and I started asking questions. Tell me about the neighborhood. Tell me about this, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And it's amazing what a cold bottle of water will do when you have what they call jonesing, or somebody's chasing the needle or they're chasing the pipe. Okay. And you understand that they're in need. Well, these are the kind of people that would fit the type of personality as Porch Guy. They may not necessarily always be sophisticated, but they are criminally minded. And that guy who came on that front porch had no sense of feeling for Nancy Guthrie. Absolutely zero. And so I wanted to know where those zeros hang out. And how do those zeros connect in any way, shape, or form close to the three women in this investigation? Because for me, Nancy is the main target, but is it possible that Annie was also in the conversation, or Savannah, or is it possible you need an area where somebody could be brought in as Porch Guy? And there's more to this story that we don't know yet. Okay? So I hit the streets in the last week in Tucson. And I thought, how do we go from this house in terms of the suspect understanding she was going to be in this house at a certain time, a certain date, and a certain place? Somebody knows. And it's not standing in front of this house where we're going to get that information. It's going to be going to parks like I just showed you, that park actually, and telling people there's $1.2 million on the fence here. And that park is 5.9 miles from Nancy's house. It is 5.6 miles from Annie's house. It is 1,000 feet from Annie's workshop. And you will be surprised when you do that, what you will find out about perceptions, about maybe the cops are looking in the wrong direction. Maybe they're waiting for the Easter Bunny. And maybe there's more to this than just the electronic footprint. This is a situation where there are a lot of answers, in my opinion, in that geographic region. Karen, thoughts?
Let's show the video so they can take a look and see what we found.
Okay. So we went from this house right back down to the park. Let me show that here in a second. In my mind to, let's try to find the waiter. Now, if you'll notice that sign behind me, okay, that is an auto dealer. They sell cars. They probably let you borrow them too. And it's on the same property of the workshop. And at the end of the street here, it's in the same area of it's the park. The park is right next door. And so I thought I'd go talk to some of the folks, for lack of a better term. You know, and this is the kind of area where you would actually find that waiter. Let's say, hypothetically, this is a situation that, you know, involves more than one person. And, you know, when you come out here and you see stuff like this, it does make you think about, you know, the type of people that potentially could have access to Nancy Guthrie. Now, believe it or not, this area here is the actual nonprofit that one of the family members supports. As you can see, this is a pretty interesting area as a whole. There's a park behind me over here that has a lot of homelessness, a lot of drugs. You know, there are needles. There's all kinds of stuff open, you know, here in this environment. Now, one of the things, remember, we talked about in the victim risk continuum was what they call the, you know, situation, environment, circumstance, low, medium, high risk. We talked about, remember, a contact point. There has to be a contact point. And I come from the old school where we solved homicides long before DNA, long before cell phone towers and all this other stuff. Those are great tools, don't misunderstand me. But you've got to get on the street and you've got to know where to go, and how to get there. And you've got to understand what the circumstances are and empathize with people living on the street. You just can't drive by them and say, thank you very much, or sit at a desk with your computer screen on and expect leads to come flooding into your office or watch YouTube and go, yeah, I think this is a wrench attack. I'm going to tell my investigators to go out there. Okay. When stuff like this is sitting under your nose, where you have the daughter of a kidnap victim in an environment that's loaded with criminals, just loaded. And I'm not talking a few. I'm talking the other night, you know, just recently, they had a shooting in the park that I'm at. The guy's dead. And when I started doing the research on this particular area, I said to myself, bingo, we're into something here. Is it possible this guy is associated with the nonprofit group, i.e. not that they work or connected them, but that they go there because it's open for events. There's all kinds of stuff that would open up the possibility of somebody going, overhearing, knowing, learning about Annie's life that could connect it to Savannah's life, that could connect it to her mother's life. Everybody see where I'm going here? And in between this, you just happen to have a car dealership that sells cars, okay? Kind of like, you know, off the side kind of thing. So my question was, you know, can you borrow a car? Can you take a car on a test drive? And if so, nobody would know better. And what kind of car are they looking for on the video? How many cars are in that area there inside of, you know, this particular car dealership? And so it makes you think. It does make you think. This is the type of environment that if there was a waiter in this case, if I was investigating this case, these are the kind of things that I would really want to break down and get into. And so, you know, that said, I don't know, I just think it's interesting. I'm going to go see if I can talk to somebody. So I'm not going to name her name, but I started, you know, shaking the trees. And I went down to the end of the park as well. And I started asking questions. This poor, sweet woman here, you know, she's obviously suffering. Lots of issues going on here. But you know what? They have the best information. And it takes individuals like this to start feeding you information about homicides.
And that only makes sense. She's in the neighborhood. She sees a lot going on, right? And probably most obviously people there aren't reporting on other people's crimes. So she's going to be, and people like her are going to be a wealth of information. if the cops go down and spend the time and talk to people. It's old school.
Yeah, the Bravo teams, or what we would call crash units where I'm at back in the day, or special enforcement SES. I gave her a bottle of water there, as you can see, a cold bottle of water, because it was hot. It was like 102 degrees. And she's just trying to make it. She's just trying to do her thing. But at the same time, those are the kind of things where you start getting information, and you start, if you're going to solve a case, you've got to leave the house. You've got to leave. Okay, we know all we can about, Porch Guy, but you've got to get out into the street. And I was really disappointed, and we're going to talk more about this on the second piece of this on the next episode, about how the sheriff has absolutely gutted his department because of his personal anger issues with employees. He has compromised Nancy Guthrie's investigation. He has compromised it, and there is no question in my mind now that this is a perfect example of finding connections to potential connections, family members. There's no denying this now. And now what he needs to do is cut loose his teams, and they need to get out there and start talking to people in this type of environment.
And at the very least, it would be to eliminate possibilities. Either rule them in or eliminate them.
Absolutely.
But this would have to be done. This and probably other areas of Tucson as well.
Absolutely.
But this seems like a real magnet for the type of person that Porch Guy is.
Absolutely.
We don't know. No one's come forward. No one has identified him. No, setting aside the $1.2 million reward, we don't know. You would assume they would have told us if they had a solid lead that Porch Guy was identified, but we have to assume that hasn't happened. And I think a lot of us sit back and go, well, of course the cops were out talking to everybody on the street to try to solve this case. But from what we heard, it hasn't happened.
Yeah, and if you look to the gate to the left there, that's the entrance into where all the cars are.
And let me just clarify.
Yeah.
Chris called it a car dealership. I would call it a used car lot, a used car shop. So, we're not talking about brand new, from the manufacturer. We're just talking about used cars. But to your point earlier, how easy would that be to blend in? Again, it's just a theory. If Porch Guy took different cars to surveil Nancy's house ahead of time.
Yeah, and I'm not also
suggesting
in any way, shape, or form that this dealership is involved in the Nancy Guthrie case in any way, shape, or form. But I am saying that there is a dealership where you can get a car, or maybe even depends on your relationships there. And you could probably, use that car. Or, like I said to Karen, I said, well, what if you're smart enough to say, well, I'll just take it for a test drive, and you want to drive up there and you want to surveil Nancy's house? Hypothetically, let's say you overheard a conversation while hanging out at the Splinter. And maybe you overheard something where somebody said, whoa, wait a minute, let's look at this. Let's see what's going on here. Okay. So you can have more informative that will show up later. If you look over to the right, they're doing drugs at that car as I'm walking up on them. They're slamming the needle. This guy over here on the left, I was really worried about him because he you could tell he looked dehydrated. And I started walking up there, but I cut the film and I turned around and went back, got some water, and I'm going up to hand him his water.
I want to kick you a water, ma'am. Thank you. You're very welcome.
You know, this guy here probably has more information about this park and this environment than Nanos could get in a month. Because you have to go to the people. Remember, I've always said it's citizens who solve crimes, and I mean that still to this day. Okay? He can't, he may be chasing the needle. I talked to him a little bit. Obviously I didn't film it in terms of put his voice or anything like that. But these are the kind of individuals that you need to say very clearly and thoughtfully, look, it's not about you. I'm trying to help this 84-year-old woman. Would you help me? And a lot of times, 99% of time, individuals like this will do that. Now, they're going to do it on the QT, but you'll be surprised how many times. I used to have a little thing. It's called my card. And those of you homicide guys out there, you can use it. I used to have 2 cards. One of them just said the words, my card. And the other one had my business card with my phone number on it. And I would walk up and I'd say, hey, man, yada, yada. Can I talk to you about something? If they go, no, whatever, right? I said, well, no problem. How about if I give you my card? And I'd hand them that card that says my card. And they'd flip it over and they'd start cracking up. Okay. And I said, now, here's my other card. I know you'll never remember why I want to talk to you, but you will remember the guy that gave you my card. When you change your mind, I'll be around and we can talk. So if you look to the left here, when I pan back, you see that crew up there? Hey, those are the kind of folks that know so much about about finding Porch Guy.
So again, this would be an area where you could actually hire the waiter, in my opinion.
So this is the car shop. This is one of the entrances into Annie's shop. And look how close they were. I walked from her shop to the park. What else do you know about that park, Hum?
I mean, it's proximity. It's a little hard to tell on our video, but it's all right there. You guys saw the train tracks. You can see where this building, it's called Splinter Collective. It's a nonprofit. It's where Annie has her jewelry shop. And then you can see the rest of the neighborhood. And, obviously it's the park in particular is a huge troublesome. It's a blight on the city of Tucson. I mean, there's tons of news coverage about, and we just played a tiny clip of it. The homeless encampments that, were moved off site, as we already said, it's a hotbed for criminal activity. And it's a conundrum for the city. They've been dealing with this for years. Again, as far as investigating Nancy Guthrie's case, this would be, to Chris's point, an obvious place to spend time to try to get intel to figure out who Porch Guy is.
And you can't be afraid of it. You can't be afraid of political ramifications. You can't be afraid of the type of people you'd be talking to. You have to embrace it because we're talking about Nancy Guthrie. And so connecting some dots here, I thought to myself, okay, I've accomplished goal number one. Is the neighborhood, i.e. Nancy's house, do I think that neighborhood was familiar to the suspect? I've thought that, but now that I've been there, I know that. And so the second piece for me was, okay, dot number two, I need to somehow connect or at least start looking in lanes, in directions that would take me to the type of person that would understand that connection. Where is that circle of influence? Where does it exist? And here I am, here we are, Karen and I, because this is a collective effort. Investigatively, here I am in front of this place going, hey, wait a minute. What's going on here in this neighborhood? And you guys are seeing it as we were experiencing it now. And so the next piece for me was there's got to be a Walmart nearby. There has to be a Walmart nearby. And guess what? There's a Walmart nearby. Not only one, three.
So your theory is Porch Guy would, if he's from this area or familiar with it or been down here, he would have then gone to one of the Walmarts to purchase the backpack and the other things that he wore on the video the night of.
Somebody could have bought it there, and you would want to know who that somebody is. Within 2 miles of this area, there are 3 Walmarts. And so, and the interesting part about this is in Tucson City proper. So this is the city of Tucson. It is not Pima County Sheriff's Office. So the sheriff may not have even flushed this out yet. But after tonight, he will, if he's watching. After tonight, I would suspect that just because corporate, you're waiting on corporate to send you something. You went to a Home Depot once, Karen.
I did. Yep. It was a case many years ago that I covered as a crime reporter. His name was Josh Jenkins. It was a very horrific crime. He killed 5 members of his family. And we learned that, and by the way, he was 15 years old, obviously extraordinarily troubled young man. He went to a nearby Home Depot and purchased a tool that he then used on his last victim back at the home where he was staying. So anyway, after hearing all that, I went to the Home Depot and I actually talked to the clerk who sold the killer the tool, which, was kind of a piece of the story at the time. And, it's a really horrible case, but it's what you have to do, for my lane as an investigative reporter, and clearly the cops as the investigators.
So also around this area, like I said, within 2 miles, whoops.
Yeah.
There are 3 Walmarts.
Which is interesting because, again, if the perp and or perps are local, and if they bought the gear at a Walmart, they certainly had options.
So now I want to take you a little bit closer to the evening, back to the same area. And this is the drive every single day that the sister of Savannah Guthrie takes to go to her shop. And you'll see It's a very industrialized, older neighborhood. It's a barrio. There is a lot of problems, as we've already explained. But this is the area of going into that district. A lot of homes were torn down, you know, a lot of what's going on there. There's a tremendous amount of homelessness, but this is basically the hood. You know, this is very important to understand this, because this is the area where you're going to find somebody that will become Porch Guy if you needed a Porch Guy. Or if you are Porch Guy, you could overhear conversations with people in jewelry shops or something to that effect. And quite frankly, you know, who knows what the odds are, could or couldn't be at this point. But I'll tell you this neighborhood, I would take my neighbor, Mr. Sig Sauer, with me. You know, I'd make sure I have him with me, which I do. But I wouldn't go into this place in probably another hour when the sun's going down here with my wife. I would do it because I'm used to it. But she would say, hey, it's getting dark. And it's getting dark. You can see. Hey. But I'm driving every single day. And now we start seeing the cast of players come out to the left, walking. They're headed to the park. They're going to go cop dope. They're going to go slam. They're going to chase the needle. They're going to smoke the pipe. They're going to do fentanyl. You know, they're going to get their blues. And by the way, there's 507 fentanyl overdoses in Arizona, with Tucson and Phoenix leading the way of fentanyl overdoses.
Which makes sense because those are the two largest cities.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But the majority of them are in this area. And if we look at now coming in here, at the end of this street is Annie's shop. Now this is a contrast from NBC Studios in New York. I would submit to you. This is a huge polar opposites of life. And this is why the dynamics of the sisters, I played it early in this presentation, where you have what we call sliding doors. One chooses one path, another chooses another path. And both paths do not converge anymore. They don't cross over. Savannah's path crosses over with world leaders, going to the Olympics, doing all of these things that they do, okay, as a high-profile celebrity. Annie's path, every single day, crosses homeless, drug addicts, disfranchised people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and the list goes on. This is Annie's shop straight ahead.
And when Chris is saying it's Annie's shop, it's within the nonprofit. That building you're seeing is the whole nonprofit organization, and we understand, has a space within that building where she makes and sells her jewelry.
Yeah, it's an old Adobe building, and they do great things for, you know, the disfranchised. And by the way, those coming back into society from being released from prison, go read their website. Okay, the list goes on. And so here's the question. Does the suspect know this area? Does he or they know this area? Meaning, did they also know about Annie? And why, if you look at this guy here coming at us, okay, he's coming from the park. And by the way, he went back and he turned around and he came back because my car didn't fit in the neighborhood. And a lot of times when you would work undercover, they had what they called whistlers in the vadios, where you would come in to the neighborhood, even in a cop car, and you would hear all the whistling going off in the neighborhood. And that was kind of a warning to everybody around that the cops were in the neighborhood. Okay. So this guy is going by and checking us out. And he's giving me what we call a hard mad dog as he's going by me. And so I'm just playing, like I'm, Clark Griswold lost going to Wally World. Remember when in that scene in the movie where he pulls up in Chicago and they take his wheels off in the vehicle. And I'm just, playing it off like, yeah, I see you, Holmes, and I know you see me, right? And, that they just get that look and you get that look and they go, oh, cop. And yeah, and I, kick it back at them like, yep, and I've got my next door neighbor with me. So we're good to go. So Home Fries goes by. I cut it, but he came back, but he went up to the park up there. Okay. So you can see the sun's going down, and that typically means, night crawlers. This is that car place right here. You're going to get a clear look at it now when I make the U-turn. You'll see that folks are starting to congregate a little bit more there on the right. And by the way, it goes way back into there where, I've got my sweetheart with me. So, I'm not going to roll that way that night at that time. But now here you get a good look at what's inside of this little
used car shop.
Okay. And so you can go in here. Again, they have a website. You can do whatever you need to do. But I had a question in my mind. It was like, well, wait a minute. How many of these cars is it possible any one of these cars is on a video somewhere in the neighborhood? And this is, for me as an investigator, I would send a videographer down here and say, get me pictures of every single car in this shop down here or in this yard or wherever. And then, you can run it through that software. There are some software that you can run it through and start looking for each one of these cars. Because if the suspect, which we believe he had come multiple times to that neighborhood, if the suspect has done that and he's so comfortable with doing that, then at some point, is it possible he's not going to bring the same car over and over and over again? Or if he does, then he's really stupid. But I don't see that piece of the puzzle. I see him being not sophisticated, but I don't see him, not thinking through the whole process here, evident of the fact that so far we haven't captured him or they haven't captured him.
It's a really good point because we've all seen the video from what we believe is January 11th that we were told of Porch Guy there at Nancy's on camera without the backpack, without the gun, visible anyway. And nobody's asking the question, well, how did he get there if it was January 11th. You're right.
Yeah, great point.
Had to come in on a car at somehow, some way. It's just an interesting point and theory to pursue if you're investigating this case.
Yeah, so we have some elements here of, we've got a potential point of contact site for Annie. We have a little, car shop thing here in the middle. And we've got a park all within a city block.
A block, if that.
Of each other. And approximately 5 miles away from the victim's house. And a Walmart within 3 Walmarts within 2 miles of this city block. So you've got all the potential elements and ingredients of everything that could connect together, you could potentially put it together. And so now all they need to start doing is start pounding the streets. In this area with Tucson Police Department, it's going to take both agencies and the FBI to get out here and pound the streets. Don't send the FBI though, because these guys will smell FBI and it'll be much more difficult. You need your street crawlers. You need your cops who have the CIs, who have the informants, who have the street smarts, who have the game. You need your gang task force guys. All of those violent crime task force folks, you need to cut them loose. And you need to shake these trees and this park and areas like this so close to that shop. And you need to start projecting, I'm looking for this guy. Don't show a picture of Nancy. Don't show a picture of Nancy. Show a picture of the bad guy. Porch Guy. Show a picture of the backpack. Have you seen this backpack on anybody out here? Oh yeah, man, that looks like, Popeyes. Or it looks like Casper's or, whatever. Okay. Where's Casper? Who is he? What is he? What's his shoe size? And you start digging. And while you're waiting for the DNA to come back, you dig. And you get out there and do what I just did in 5-7 days. Okay.
And at the very least, rule it out.
Cut it out. Exactly.
After they've done thorough investigation and thorough shaking of the trees, as you call it.
Yep. And then you start trying to see what the streets are talking to you about. Because, you've got, here's that gal, she's still there in that one car right there. Okay. But during the nighttime, this whole area comes alive. It absolutely comes alive. Around the corner here, you have the Salvation Army. You have a soup kitchen. You have a food pantry. You have a transient area. These are the areas, it's like 6th Avenue in LA in Skid Row, or an area that we had, which was called Brother Benno's. And you have all of these food pantries that are feeding people that are struggling. Okay. These are the kind of places where you need to start shaking the trees right now. And you will be surprised how much information you can get with $1 million sitting on the table. Rather than chasing bodies in Mexico and, people cutting your finger off and wrench attacks and all this other stuff, this is basic police work 101. This is getting on the street, getting into the dirt and pulling it off, getting the YouTubers. You guys have been doing a great job. I can only imagine how much information, folks could pull out of this environment that, get this environment. You've been there, done that. Okay. Much respect to each and every one of you. And you know who I'm talking about. Much respect, because I believe you guys if you put your efforts into this area, I guarantee you guys will kick some dirt up. Because I'm real curious of how hard that surface is right now of that dirt. And that's a metaphor for information sitting there. If you can get $1 million, I hope you get $1 million. And when they award you that check, I want to be right there with you, watching you get it. But right to the right is the Salvation Army and a soup kitchen and a soup pantry. Right on this particular corner. So now if we look at this, okay, we are 2.5 miles from the flag on the right. That is Mom's house. We are 5.9 miles to the one on the left. That is AG's house, Annie's house. The blue dot is the park. It is a straight shot from Annie's house to that park. It's a couple of turns and then it's a straight drive. And then the Walmart is within that blue dot within 2 miles. There are 3 Walmarts within that area. That is the kind of area I would hope you would continue to focus into. Now let this run for a second.
Esteban Park is located in the Dunbar Springs / Barrio Nida neighborhood in Tucson, Arizona. People run and exercise there. The rugby team practices there and has matches there. So it's a pretty active park. I mean, I think it's just got the visual realities of.
There's the visual reality of that park. And by the way, this is Annie's boss speaking.
What's going on with the housing crisis right now?
Is Porch Guy in this environment? Is my question tonight. Is Porch Guy in this environment?
My name is Natalie Brewster-Wynn.
I'm not saying he's homeless. I'm talking about criminal element. Because that's the kind of guy we want to be looking for. There is no way you leave this environment and show up at Nancy's front door at 2:00 in the morning without knowing why you're going there. Is this the chef or the waiter's environment? I would submit to you, this is the kind of place you will find the waiter.
Most people call me Nat, and I am the founder and one of the co-executive directors of Splinter Collective. Our official nonprofit name is the Splinter Art and Community Fund. Splinter Collective is a number of things, but it is a physical space, so it's an art studio, warehouse, and event space. And we primarily work on events and artistic endeavors that amplify marginalized voices and experiences. And we're in an industrial area. It's kind of this little triangle right on the
You can see her area and the park very clearly.
Train tracks and adjacent to Esteban Park. To me, everything is an ecosystem. We can't separate ourselves out from what's happening around us. And
now, what's interesting about that statement, an ecosystem that they can't separate themselves out from what's happening around us. Well, they also accept career criminals into their programs that they support. They're a good organization. They're trying to help. But inadvertently, did one of these individuals overhear a conversation that Annie may have ever had about her mom, about her famous sister? And one of these folks says, hey, wait a minute. And now a plan is put into motion. I wouldn't take it off the plate.
And we are in the middle of a bunch of different resources. The Caridad community kitchen, a bunch of churches that do soup kitchens and food pantries, the Salvation Army. And so you have people gathering where there are some resources available. Esteban Park is very much one of the most impacted parks by the rising levels of houseless folks.
This is a heat map of the crime. Look at the very top, the star. That's the area where Nancy lives. All the guns is the area where Annie goes towards her shop. All of that area down on the bottom. Is this a contact site? It's something we have to think about. We have to think about this. This is a shooting on February 25th, right after Nancy went missing, at the exact same park we've been talking about tonight. Think about that. So my question is this evening. And the question is, bring this out. Does Porch Guy know this area? Does he know Annie? And where are the Bravo teams, the street teams that Nanos stripped from his department that could be working with the Tucson Bravo teams, meaning the specialized units, to go in and to talk to all the CIs, to talk to all of their contacts and ask them about any connections to this shop in any way, shape, or form? And if so, will it bring leads into bringing Nancy Guthrie home, or at least finding her? At this point, since I have been on the ground now, if I was the case agent, I would seriously take this information very seriously and very carefully. Start structuring interviews and putting people out there and shaking the trees. It's necessary. You cannot ignore it. You cannot ignore it. Karen, thoughts, takeaway?
And along with that, I would say local media in Tucson needs to be asking the Pima County Sheriff, why? Well, have you done this? And if you haven't, why not? And continue to press them and ask questions about, have you looked at this park? What are you doing in terms of trying to find the suspect? To really, again, keep it focused and obviously understanding that this is a theory. Of course, nobody knows where exactly Porch Guy is or who he is. But until we find out, this has to be one of the things that the police investigate, the sheriff's department investigate, and that local media needs to be putting pressure on the Pima County Sheriff and asking him why or why not this area has been part of the investigation.
KVOA, you need to do your job as journalist. You need to ask Nanos the hard questions, and you need to put Nancy Guthrie a priority, not your own political agenda for the next story. We went by your spot and we saw the banner and everything going there. And we know there are notes in front of Nancy's house telling everybody to deliver the information to your place. We also know you had a heads up that YouTubers were going to be arrested before they were arrested. Shame on you for not doing your job. When I'm back in town, by the way, I will be, but you won't know when, and I ring your doorbell, I'm going to ask you the hard questions on camera. The ones you won't ask the sheriff because of your own political gain, because you want to play nice, because you're local, and Nancy Guthrie in probably a month or two will be old news, i.e. the story doesn't have legs. Well, guess what? We've been there, done that. And you owe it to your community to do the right thing on behalf of Nancy Guthrie, not on behalf of a sheriff who's stonewalling the community, hoping this goes away. So we're going to shift the goalpost and take it to Tucson. Are you going to do the same thing over there? You should be ashamed of yourself as calling yourself journalist. It's not right. You have a family who's suffering, and you have a sheriff who's stalling. And dismantling a police department or a sheriff's department who can go out and get things done. When they find her, I believe they will, or they find the suspect, shame on you for not doing the right thing. You took an oath of ethics as a journalist, and you know who I'm talking about because you had a heads up, and I know that for a fact, that they were going to go out and start arresting people in front of Nancy's house. And you did nothing about it but come out and do a story right after the arrest. And when the civil attorneys call me, I'll give them my sources. And then you guys can get your own attorneys. It's wrong. Let me grab, well, there are 92.
We got to take some questions. They've been patient. Thanks, you guys, for hanging in there. If you got this far in the video, thank you so much.
Okay, let me
We
grab.
want to take your questions.
I'm going to grab
Chris is
the
gonna be
questions,
doing
okay,
that.
guys? There's a lot of great comments in here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Check emails. I will. Thank you. Snacks for Buddy.
Let me just say for all the super chats, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. We want to let you know that we appreciate it.
Okay.
Chris is going to be he's looking on for the questions.
A lot of these are compliments. Thank you, guys. Don't throw a name unless you have proof. Okay. What name have I thrown? I'm just asking for me. I haven't thrown a name out, but thank you for playing.
Do we have some questions in there?
No, I'm not seeing questions. I'm just
A lot
seeing
of comments.
comments.
Comments are good.
Did I feel we were being watched while on Nancy Street? Combo plate. Yeah, we had neighbors come out, but I just waved at them.
We wanted to be respectful of the neighborhood.
Let's see here. Did you look into the surrounding neighborhood with known criminal records Nancy was complaining about? Nancy may have heard something she shouldn't have. We all know about Nanos ways. We looked around the entire area, and we have more coming on another video that's going to bring more information to the table. Prayed this AM for Chris and Karen. Nobody should outlive their kids. God bless you, two angels on earth. Please send treats to Buddy.
Thank you, Save America. We
You
appreciate
hear
it.
that knucklehead below us here. Yeah, this is good. Correct. Porch Guy's not homeless. That's what we said. Too well dressed. By the way, that well dressed is brand new clothing, though. That's something to consider. Mustache too well trimmed. So you think one car was swapped en route. It's possible. Anything is possible. But where do you get the car is where I want to know. I find it interesting of what we just reported. Say that again, Karen.
High Cheekbone says, I think you're right about the car dealership using different cars. Don't forget, LD lives less than 3 miles from Nancy and knows the hood. MG Motors is one of those car type of dealers. Please look into the dots that connect there.
Yeah, and I see that Luke is a local dope dealer and that somebody dropped a dime on him to get him out of the picture. Not saying he couldn't be. I'm just saying word on the street. Somebody dimed him off.
Misty says, this is amazing work. Thank you to you and your beautiful wife. I hope you guys will find the common denominator. You are both so appreciated. Thank you, Misty. You're very sweet, very kind.
Dang, this is great stuff. You guys really put yourself in your work. Excellent new info for us.
Thank you, Cheryl's.
A lot of comments here. Lots of comments. You got my attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley.
We
appreciate you.
We do. And I'll run a lot of these chats here. Do you feel like it's more about A now, not saying she's involved, of course, but could it be someone that was infatuated? It's possible that the circle of influence, i.e. the contact site here that we're potentially talking about, the elements are there. They could be there. And as an investigator, you can't ignore it. And that's why the expert panel that we'll put together to weigh in as well. I think anybody who's ever worked major crimes would go, what?
It's something you can't ignore. It seems fairly obvious right there. Am I wrong?
Yep.
Barrio BMX trail is near the school district office, and where a tip said a man believed to be Porch Guy could be found there, Broadway and Park. Transmission specialist needs to try the vehicles to repair.
There you go. That's the kind of stuff you chase. No, we didn't go onto the property. We stayed on the public street. Yeah, I've heard of that lady, Frances. I don't want to put her name up. Yeah, thank you for your contribution. Thank you always for your amazing work. We appreciate you. Thank you, Adrian. Scotland.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
And okay, so Tuesday night will be the next one with the panel. They'll be reacting to some of the stuff that we'll be showing as well. So in the interim, did I miss anything, sweetheart?
I mean, I think we covered most of it. I just think it's really important, again, to emphasize that this is a theory and it is something that needs to be investigated. And the question is, has Pima County included this in their investigation of Nancy Guthrie, and who is Porch Guy? That's the question. That's what we're trying to get across tonight.
And we think that he should also fire back up the Bravo teams, his street teams, and have them start chasing this down with Tucson PD and start shaking the bushes in that region to see if there's any way to connect any of the information back to the house. That's what we're saying. So with that, we want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. Again, we will see you on Tuesday night. Until then, Biakamai, continue to take care of each other, continue to pray for Nancy, and Karen and I will see you on the next one. Aloha, everybody.
Have a good night.
And happy Father's Day.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer